Welcome to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, here to share some amazing conversations. We're talking business, health, making and saving money, or starting something epic. Think of this as your go-to spot for stories that do a lot more than just kill time. They spark ideas, give you a boost, and perhaps even change the way you look at the world. I'm pulling in the experts, the thinkers, the doers, and the dreamers. We're about to dive into stories that open doors and ideas that light up your brain. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, and with me today, I'm honored to have Dr. Lynn Banis. How are you today, Dr. Lynn?
I am great, Desiree. Thank you so much for having me on.
Excellent. I am thrilled to have you on. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think it's such an important topic that we really don't talk about very often. And just to share a little bit about you, Dr. Lynn, you are the founder and owner of Widows Rising Together, and you really help other women create new, fulfilling, wonderful lives after experiencing grief and loss. And so we're going to be talking about that, as well as grief and how to help others who are going through the grieving process. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And so, Dr. Lynn, would you share how this journey happened for you? What led you to creating Widows Rising Together?
Sure, I'm glad to. It has morphed a bit. Let me say that. I'm working not only with widows, but with women who have lost their job, lost their identity, been through divorce, anything where you really feel that terrible grief. And sometimes we don't put grief with all those other things, but we certainly do go through it. Yeah, I was happily retired, and I had spent most of my life in corporate America doing executive coaching and organization behavior, leadership development, change management. And so my husband retired, and a couple of years later, I decided, yeah, maybe it's time to just enjoy the grandkids. Then my 100-year-old mom was ready to accept 3 hurricanes right at her. And I called my brother. I said, go get her. We can't let her do that. And she promptly fell at his house and broke her hip. So then I brought her home to me because we just didn't feel like at 100 she needed to be alone anymore. And she was, she was very independent, obviously. So she stayed with us till she passed at 106, which is just truly amazing. And unfortunately, then within 2.5 years, I lost my little brother and my husband. So I had to kind of slug through that terrible darkness and pain and loneliness. And after a year or so of experiencing all that and working my way through it, I kind of had an epiphany, a wake up like, you know what? You have all the skills that you need. You know about human behavior. You know how to help people go through these sorts of things. So I decided that's what my calling is now, and I am really dedicated to it. I have a different approach, I believe. I don't just stop with the emotional issues. That's one thing, but that's only partway there. It's really important to help somebody not only get through that part, but to take the time, the effort, and work with someone who knows what they're doing, who will take their hand and walk them through the process of not only clearing their self-limiting beliefs and mindset and all those sorts of things, but getting back to figuring out who in the world they are. Who were they when they were born? What was their life? What was intended for them? And how can we get rid of all this junk that life layers and layers and layers and layers on us? And it just kind of holds us back from being who we really are. So I do that work. Some of it is psychological, some of it's spiritual, some physical. I mean, if we need to get your diet straight because you're not taking care of yourself, then we'll do that. So I work with someone for about 12 weeks, one-on-one. Then I put women together in a mastermind type group where they have come up with what they want their life to be. And then they support each other, stepping into that and making it work. So it's a year-long process, but it works. There is total transformation and it sticks, and we don't have people, falling backwards or, getting restuck. And that makes a huge difference because we all deserve to live our lives happily, and none of us deserve to go through it alone.
Mm.
So in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got there and what I do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And first of all, I just want to say, wow, 106 years old. That's amazing. What a life, right? I
Yeah.
mean, oh my goodness, so much. It's just tremendous that she lived so long. So that's awesome. And that you got to spend those last few years with her, just being with her and
It's
taking care of her is
incredible.
amazing. Yes.
Best buddies. We just got to
Mm.
be such good friends.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I am sorry though that you had to go through that, just back to back like that. But as you shared, it really unlocks something in that reminder that you know how to process this and, for yourself, but then also how to help others process the emotions and the feelings and all of that to heal. And I love that you shared that it doesn't just have to be death as that transition. It can be loss of job, it can be a divorce or some kind of identity change, because that is truly also a loss, right?
Sure.
And
And
so
trauma, people who've
right.
been through trauma, you lose your mobility or a body part, you go through a very similar grief process.
Yes. Yes, and so thank you for that because it's so true, and I think we need to recognize that and remind ourselves that we have to give ourselves some space and some grace and, not be too hard on ourselves when we're going through those changes and transitions and things, so great stuff. And then also, I have to think on it a second what there was something else in there I wanted to talk about, but let's talk now about how you began to work through your own grief before then you realized, "I can extend this to helping others."
Sure. Well, I made a lot of mistakes
Mm.
that were wonderful learnings. I've always been busy. I stay busy, and I pushed myself the first, little bit where you just had that total brain fog. You can't think, but people want this legal document and that legal document. That's a tough, tough time to get through. Pushed myself through that. And then, you go through the process of one day you have friends and the next day everybody's gone. And so that is something I also want to talk about because I have a real passion for educating people on how to deal with folks that are, in this process. And then I lived in a house that was quite large, and I looked at it and I thought, man, that needs to be done. That needs to be done. This is overwhelming. I can't do this. So I got ready to sell my house, and I did that within the year, which I would not expect people to do. And I didn't have the issue of leaving the house and feel like I was leaving Bill or, anything like that. But it was the exhaustion, and you don't realize how much energy grief takes from you. So about 9 months in, I just settled into my new house and I got sick for 3 months. My body was saying, stop, just stop. So I had all sorts of things, one after another after another. And that's when I had lots of time to think. And I realized you have learned, you have figured this out now. And now's an opportunity for you to do something about it, because there's just so much that people don't know about grief. I mean, think we are all grieving right now and don't really realize it. When you stop and think about the changes since COVID, our whole lifestyle's changed. Every day you read about change in the paper. The whole world is changing. And there is an internal grief that's going on about losing the way we used to live. Many of us are feeling so stressed, and I think that's a lot of it because we're not dealing with it. We're not talking with it. And then that gets into the taboo in our country about talking about death.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for that. And it's just kind of sparked my memory about what I wanted to share. And that was trying to do this alone. And I love that you put people together who can be a support system for each other so that they're not going through the death grieving process alone. And so I think that's tremendous. We shouldn't be trying to do this on our own. And a lot of times we don't want to bother other people, right?
Yes,
We don't want to bring
exactly.
anybody down or stress anybody else out. And so we try to handle this all on our own. And, as you've shared, it's not really the best way to go about it. And I just have to say, I love that you mentioned about selling your house really quickly, like almost within that year of your husband's passing. And that's another, kind of end of something and start of something. And that
Exactly.
transition itself is another big thing. You're kind of grieving the ending of that time and into something new. So I think that's another great point that you made is there's another transition right there. And,
Right.
and then what happened for you getting sick after? And I think people maybe don't always make that connection, like all that stress and all of that trauma and grief that
Yeah,
you're going through weakens your body, right?
it does. Yeah,
And you,
weakens your immune system
yeah.
as well as, your brain has to go through so much transition. And people don't realize that, the minute you lose something major like that, your brain rewires itself because it's like a map in there of who you're with all the time, what your daily routine is like, on and on and on. And all of a sudden, that person's not there, or that job is not there, or whatever. And your brain's going, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so it has to readjust. That takes time. And as you move through grief, it's constantly needing readjusting as become different, than who you were before. And I know that's hard for some people to take in. I mean, it's like, think about this. If your house burned down and you lost everything, you would go to a builder with your insurance in your hand and say, I want to rebuild here and I want it to have this and this. And the builder's going to say, no, your insurance isn't paying for that. You have to rebuild it exactly like it was. Well, people want to do that with their life.
Yeah.
And it can't happen. It can't be exactly the way it was. You cannot bring that thing or person back. So you've got to find ways to create something that carries those memories with you and honors them, and yet allows you to blossom into what you were always created to be and do. And, that's not something that we can do by ourselves. It's just so much to it that, I always tell my clients, I am here to take you by the hand and to walk you right through this process. I am not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to try to get the stones and stumbling points out of the way so you don't have to experience that. And it doesn't make it perfect. It's still difficult, but to know that you've got someone there that's been there, done that,
Mhm.
and learned from it. And then to find yourself when it's appropriate with other people who you don't have to explain yourself. They get it, and you're not going to be put in a group where everybody gets into the, oh, poor me, and this happened to me, and I'm never going to get out of this, and blah, blah, blah. You can't stay there. That might be okay in the beginning to get some of it out, but you've got to get into an environment where people can be supportive. And it's so good for you to be supportive of somebody else. That's one of the cool things about recovering is when you can do something for someone else, it really helps you heal.
That's right.
We do not heal by ourselves. We heal in the presence of others. That's a big, big, big deal. People
Yeah.
don't realize. And as you said, it's like, well, I don't want to burden my kids. I don't want them to think I'm, just sitting here crying. And well, damn it, it's okay because that's what you're doing. And if your kids are your support system, it's not to be maudlin, but it's a matter of bringing the whole family together because they are grieving too in their own way, but they have family and they have things that they need to do. So if you can find ways where you can come together, share your strength and emotions with one another and know that they're there, that they're at the end of the phone or whatever, it's huge in healing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be family. It can be your family, can be whoever you love.
That's right. Yeah. Great stuff, Dr. Lynn. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, so many good points in there for sure. And I love that you said we need to be including our children, grandchildren, everybody. And it doesn't always have to be that the sadness, right? I mean, how wonderful is it to share the amazing times that you had with somebody, right? And the laughter, and I'm going to get emotional right now, but how important that part of it is too, in the memories and keeping that alive and then carrying that with you. And you said that
Right.
before, carry all of these things with you as you launch into this next part of your journey. And I think that's beautiful.
Let me give you an example of something that I came up with that worked so well for my family. And I've had a lot of clients do it too. Sadly, when my husband died, 1 month before, which was Christmas Eve day, we were at my daughter's house and her father in law passed away right there. And then 1 month to the day, my husband passed away. And so the grandchildren lost two grandpas at once. And so I thought, well, these holidays are really not easy for anybody. So I gave everybody a small mason jar. And I said, for 3 weeks before Christmas, just write down a note. This is what so and so said that made me laugh. I loved it when I used to sit on grandpa's lap and read books or whatever it was. And, we decided we couldn't do Christmas the way we'd always done Christmas. We just couldn't do it. So we changed things up a bit and we sat around with those mason jars and started pulling things from them and reading. And like you said, we started laughing. The memories started coming. It was so healing for everybody. And we've carried that on. We've carried that on over the years. And so, it's like, oh no, that story again. But, everybody laughs about it.
Yes. Oh gosh, Dr. Lynn, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's a wonderful new tradition that you created. Really is a way to honor their memories and the laughter and the good times and change it so that it wasn't tied to the sadness, that the
Right.
holidays weren't that time nobody wants to have come because it was tied to such sadness. You just changed it completely and made a new way of celebrating and being together and remembering all of that. So I think that's wonderful
You're
that it's
welcome. I hope
great.
that some of your listeners, because you realize I can't sit there and look at that empty chair or whatever it
Yeah.
is. It's just heartbreaking. So it's
Yeah.
okay to change your traditions. And you'll find, like I did, that instead of sitting down to a formal dinner like we always did, most of my grandkids are teenagers. There's a few little ones left, but they were delighted just to come in and have a make your own sandwich, hang out, play music. And so, traditions are wonderful, but sometimes it's great to change with the times too.
Yeah. Another excellent point. Thank you for that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so can we talk a little bit about we often hear about the 5 stages of grief. So if you wouldn't mind, let's talk just briefly about what those 5 stages are, and then what are some of the issues that widows face after losing a spouse that maybe sort of after the process of the 5 stages of
Mhm.
grieving, like what's next?
Well, first of all, let me say that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with those 5 stages, and they've been disproven to some degree.
Mm.
So the thing that we need to remember is, yes, we all experience those things, but at different times, they're not linear. We might be in denial and anger at the same time. And then in the next 10 minutes, we might be someplace else. So, I think it's important to be able to name what we're feeling, because we as human beings aren't very good at naming our feelings. And it's really important that we understand that that's normal to have those things happen to us, to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with us. It's part of the healing process. And it's also important to remember that there is much more after we begin to be able to handle our emotions, because by then we are deeply into the time where it's very lonely. We probably just don't want to go out. It is an effort to move. Absolutely. I remember thinking to myself, man, this grief is so painful. I feel it physically. And, just there's no motivation and on. And so these are things that are going to happen. And if you don't know about them, then they hit you really hard. You think, what's wrong with me? I don't want to get out of bed. I just want to pull the covers up over my head, or I just can't take the dogs for a walk. And you know what? Where you are is okay. It's where you're supposed to be. Don't push things down. Sit with them, which can be very uncomfortable. I am the first to admit that. It hurts. But as you sit with it, it begins to get integrated into your body. And it's not just, I mean, your physical body integrates it, your brain integrates it, your nervous system integrates it. So that, I would say that you never get over that kind of deep grief, but it becomes, you carry it in a different way. Let me say that. You carry it in a different way. And you carry it, if you're careful and you work with someone, you carry it in a way that's honoring to you, to what your life was like. And it becomes also, along with some pain, and pain does dissipate some, it becomes manageable, and it becomes a part of who you are. And we can't deny what's happened to us in our lives. That's all stuff that has shaped us and helped us grow. And, making it normal and okay is part of what our job is, to help people through this. So, you can expect that. Another thing that you can expect is to think, oh man, I think I'm finally doing really well. And then all of a sudden this huge wave crashes over you, coming right out of the blue. Expect that. Expect that you'll never know when it's going to happen. Most inopportune times you find yourself crying your eyes out again, but it's all part of the healing process.
Yeah.
And that does get better over time. The other thing I realized was, while the first year was difficult for me and many of my clients, the second year was extremely difficult too, because it hits you. This is real,
Mhm.
not going to go away. I really have to learn to deal with this and to find a way not to move beyond it. I don't believe in that, but what I believe it is moving forward with your life, bringing that consecrated memory and experience with you. And when you can do that and you have help doing that, it makes the next year and the next year and the next year easier. There are so many people that are 10 years out, 8 years out, 7 years out, that are still just stuck in the emotions and not being able to move forward. And you don't have to stay there if you can find the person that knows what they're really doing and can help you make it all the way through to the new you. And, you know, it can be absolutely beautiful. I'm happier than I have been in a long, long time because I have purpose. It's very clear to me. I get so much enjoyment about what I do. There's no negative on Bill or my life with him, none at all. As a matter of fact, I feel very fortunate because we both spent our professional lives helping people have better lives, you know, and so in some ways, it's a very honoring continuation of what we did, each of us did, and sometimes did together. That's not always the case, but it is the case that you can make this new life something that is just so worthwhile and rewarding.
Yeah. Okay, that's excellent. Thank you so much for that. I want to go back to the 5 stages. You did point out that some of it has been, dispelled, if you will. And I love that you shared it doesn't happen linearly, right? So you can have these different points where these emotions are coming up, and it's not like, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Right.
You could be
Exactly.
bouncing back and forth between them. And then, of course, what you shared about one day it'll just wash over you and you don't know where, just out of the blue. That's absolutely true. I've experienced that myself, to feel it. And you just have to go with it and recognize what's happening, and then just feel through it. And then it does kind of subside. And like you shared, over time, it's less frequent, less painful. Not that the pain that ever goes away, but it's less.
Yeah.
And if you can, continue to honor the memories and the love and all of that was experienced, you're going to be okay, right?
Right, right, right. And you know, one of the big things is that particularly as women, we spend our lives doing for others. And we get to the point where we forget what's important to us. I remember standing in the cereal aisle, box of cereal in each hand, looking at them. I've always bought these. Why have I always bought these? My family like them. Do I like either one of these? You know, like, and it was just like a bang on the head that you don't even know what you like anymore, what you want anymore. You have given of yourself and given up of yourself. So that is a huge place where we need to work hard to find out and bring you back to your authentic self. And it's probably been a long time since you've been able to experience that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. We do, as mothers, we caretake and we put everybody's needs before our own
Yep.
more often than not. I'm not saying everybody's that way, but more often than not, that's the case. And so you're right. We forget what's important to us, what matters to us, what we like, what we don't like, what we want to do.
Mhm.
And, so this is an important time to reflect on all of those things and think about what you like and don't like. And what an example. Looking at cereal in the aisle. I don't even like either of these. I don't have to buy them anymore. Yeah.
That's right. And you know, the other thing that we do as women is we tend to refrain from spending on ourselves.
Mm.
And I want women to understand that, sure, you can get help with church groups and so on and so forth. You're not going to get all the way through it. What is it worth to you to reclaim a life that's worth living? You are worth it. You are worth it. You're worth the time. You're worth the effort. You're worth whatever it's going to cost you because it will give you just a whole newly opened world.
Yeah. Great point. Thank you for that. I think it's so true. We are worth every penny of whatever it is that we want to buy for ourselves, pay for professional help for ourselves. We are absolutely worth that. And you're so right, to have that next part of your life continue to be amazing. You need to do that for yourself.
You do. You
Yeah.
do. And sometimes you can make it even more amazing than your wildest dreams,
Mm.
which is so exciting for me to see somebody blossom like that. It's
Mm.
just so rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, good stuff. Okay, can we talk a little bit about how grief for losing a spouse feels different than like trauma grief, like patients who feel grief because of trauma? Like, how is that different?
Well, it is different, but in most ways, it's very similar because your body and your brain go through the same thing. And you lose your identity. That is one of the biggest things. If I lost my leg, I would now have that identity of being a special needs person. And how you show up in the world, that can make you feel like you have to be different. You have to show up differently. And so it's so important to be able to work with somebody that can help you realize you are you. People don't love you because you have two legs and two arms. People love you because you are you. And we don't get in touch with that. We don't stay in touch with that. We feel so badly about how we look or whatever. So I think it's really important for trauma patients to understand that their physicians are not trained in emotional, mental, spiritual stuff. And one thing I do is work with personal injury docs to help them have a program they can put their people in, which takes the burden off them, because one reason they burn out is because they know they can't help their patients. And they're spending at least a third of their office time with their patient dealing with emotions when they could be dealing with the physical, which shows up and helps you heal your emotion as your body heals. So I think that it's really important for people to understand that your physician is not the person that can really help you through this. And it's very important to understand that you've not just lost something physical. You've lost your identity. You've lost what your life was like. You have to figure out something new. And you can't grieve that loss forever. You can't pull up and change your whole life because you feel like you can't do this, that, or the other thing. There's so much out there that we can find to make your life, even if you're just really, really terribly hurt, there's so much that we can do to bring joy and that you as a human being can do to bring joy to other people. So I think that's one of the major things. And then, the other one that's really different is the loss of a child. That is so devastating to parents. And as you watch, you see so many couples breaking up because they can't deal with it. They can't stay in love and deal with all of this horrible emotion at the same time. And it's so, it's so sad to watch when it can be otherwise with some guidance and help. And, what I just hear myself saying is people reach out. There's people like me out here who know what we're doing, who can help you through this. Don't try to hide it. Bury it inside yourself because you're going to get sick. And we now know that broken heart disease does kill. That has been documented scientifically, which, we don't want that to happen.
No.
We don't want that to happen. So let's all of us begin to normalize this as part of life and that we can walk through it, difficult as it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but there is something else. There is something ahead of us that we can embrace and love.
Yeah. Wonderful, Dr. Lynn. Thank you for that. And it's so important to get help because you need it. You shouldn't
Yeah.
have to go through this by yourself. It's just first of all, it's going to make it way more difficult. The length of time that you're going to be trying to process through this is going to
Much
be.
longer.
Yes, exactly. And like you shared, I mean, the loss of a child is devastating. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, a spouse as well,
Yes.
siblings, parents, everybody. But, I think for us, we think our child should outlive us, right?
Yeah,
And so if
sure.
something like that were to happen, I could see it would absolutely be devastating to the parents and can cause so much difficulty and fighting and whatever. And so if you can find someone who can help you both through that, I think is absolutely imperative, right?
It is. It is. This is just something that we have not embraced in our society. And I'm doing some things like talking to groups. Those of us who are not in the midst of grief need to know how to help someone who is. If we're in the midst of grief, we need to know how to train our family and friends. This is what I need. You don't have to come and talk to me. I don't want to talk, but just having you in the house is so helpful. Just having you pick up the phone and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking of you today. I love you." That's enough. That's all that's needed. And, there's some other things too, but it's not something that we should shy away from. And that's what happens. People are afraid they'll say or do the wrong thing. So they don't do anything, which is the wrong thing. And it hurts very, very much. I have clients who talk about having to go back to work and friends just walk past them, don't even acknowledge.
Yeah.
Put yourself in their place. They are devastated and you're not even acknowledging them because you're uncomfortable.
Mhm. Yeah. And like you shared, we in our culture, in our society, we don't talk about death. We don't celebrate death. We don't, I mean, it's like hush hush, don't talk about it, don't think about it. I had a guest on previously who was like, people are even afraid to say, I'm going to die because they think lightning's going to strike them the minute they say that. But we have to recognize that eventually we are all going to die and we need to accept that. And I know how hard it is for people who feel like they don't know what to say, don't want to say the wrong thing, hurt somebody who's already hurting. But you made a great point in there, just being together.
Yeah. And be thoughtful about what you do. I kind of joke now about lasagna. Don't bring lasagna. So many, just me, 13 by 9 casseroles of lasagna. And I would, every time my girls would come over, I'd say, here, here. And then, they got to the point of, no, no more. And you have enough for forever. Think about that. Is it one person? They don't want to eat anyway. So give them something small, easy to fix, like a cheese and cracker tray,
Yeah.
a small bowl of fruit. Leave something at their door that they can just pop in the microwave or the air fryer that takes no effort because they have no energy.
Right.
Just sometimes I know of people that have given gift cards for places to go out to eat,
Mm.
which you have to feel that one out because many people don't want to go anywhere and they certainly don't want to go to a restaurant and eat by themselves. But then find something where they can drive through, make it easy. Make it easy. And so if you go in someone's house, don't say, "What can I do for you?" Look around, do the dishes, fold the laundry, just don't even say anything, just do it. He'll be so appreciated.
For sure. And thank you for that, because I was going to ask you what others should do to help those who are going through the grieving process. So these are some great examples. I love that you share just a small bowl of fruit. Bring them some yogurt, Yeah, just anything little, because you're so right. It's first of all, you don't have any energy. You're not thinking about eating anyway. You probably don't feel like eating. So
No.
if it's something like an enormous tray of lasagna, you know, certainly I can see initially if you might have a lot of family over, that would be
Yes.
helpful to serve everybody. But
Yes.
then after that, it's just too much. And, again, your point about just coming over and doing the dishes or changing the sheets on the bed or, whatever you feel comfortable doing, however close the person is in your life.
Mhm.
It's great suggestions that, we can easily do and take off the grieving person's plate so they don't have to think about it and deal
Right.
with it.
And sometimes you stop and get a milkshake or
Mhm.
lemonade. Get one for your friend and just stop by. Here, I was thinking about you. You don't have to stay, just shove along.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Another great suggestion. Oh, good stuff. Okay, so let me ask you, what do you think the main differences are between like grief groups and the kind of service that you're providing, which is more like one-on-one with a little bit of group environment?
Well, it's one-on-one with a lot of group environment, except the group environment comes after. I don't take people right after they've experienced it. I wait till they can get through and manage their emotions a bit
Mm,
and think, that you get brain fog. So once you've gotten to the point where it's kind of like, I know there is something more. I want that. I don't want to stay here. It's too painful or whatever. That's when you look for somebody that can do what I can do with people. And, helping them get rid of all the blocks in their bodies that keep them from being able to see perspective, generate alternatives, feel happy about things, and begin to feel like, hey, there's something out there, and not just have everything be so just flat and gray. That's when I start working, and that's where the difference is made because you're not left to deal with the lingering stuff that has to be cleared out before you can move on to whatever is next, your next chapter, create that. And that's the other thing. I help people create that next chapter. You don't have to leave a legacy. Your legacy can be that you got through this, you learned a knit, or you did something that you love to do, you're reading books. That can be your legacy. That can show your family and your children and your grandchildren it's possible to get through this with grace and with yourself intact.
yeah, that's beautiful. And it made me think also of resilience. You are also showing your family, loved ones, and friends resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't just curl up in a ball. There's life to be lived, even though it doesn't feel like it at this point. You are here on earth to do something positive. That's my belief.
Mhm.
So let people help you figure out what that is so you can do it. Be fulfilled by it.
Yeah. And as you shared earlier in the show, how amazing it feels when we help other people. So when you're just getting to that point where you're like, what do I do now? Looking at how can I help other people becomes something that's so fulfilling, right? And
Yeah.
giving to you too.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's driving Meals on Wheels, volunteering at this, that, or the other thing, helping at church, helping the school system, the needs out there are just so great
Yeah.
that, we can help people find whatever. We can help them find something that they love.
Yeah, for sure. Such important work that you're doing. So thank you for that. Dr. Lynn, I think at this point, is there anything that you haven't shared so far in our conversation that you think the person who is listening really needs to know? What would that be?
That would be that as you go through life, you accumulate knowledge, skills, abilities, all sorts of things that have brought you to where you are right now. It's inside you. You just need someone to help you find it and bring it out. You're not broken, you're becoming. So let's get in there and help you pull those wonderful things out that have given you the strength and the resilience to make it as far as you've come.
Yes. Oh my gosh, good advice, and so beautiful. You're right. We all have so much that we have developed in our lives that we forget. We
Oh,
just
yeah.
discount and think it's not important or whatever, but it truly is. And if you can work with someone who can help you begin to draw those things back out so that you can, share it with the world in whatever manner, I think it's beautiful. And what a way to live the rest of your life.
Sure. And remember, your world can be as small as your nuclear family, or it can be your community or whatever. You know, please don't put the blinders on like they put on the Clydesdales. There's a big wide world out there and you get to choose how you interact.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always love to have my guests share if there's books that have been helpful or beneficial or podcasts that you enjoy listening to that you think the listeners should check out. What would you like to suggest?
The newest book that I have found extremely helpful is by Dr. Karen Kramer with a K, and it's called Healthy Grief. It's really beautifully done, and it touches on all of these other aspects of life as well as the pain and the grief and that process. Karen is amazing and brilliant, and that book, I think I've given it to several clients, and they have said that has been the most helpful thing. As far as podcasts go, I think you have to sample them and see
Oh,
what feels right, because everyone has a little bit of a different tone. And, it you can tell within a few minutes if it's going to sit. So do that. And don't just read about grief and recovery. Get your mind to force itself open a bit so that your perspective will start to grow again because it's just been slammed shut. So, yeah, those are the things. I would love to have people take a look at my Facebook page and my LinkedIn page. I post most days, little bits of help here and there on Mondays and Fridays. I do a very brief video that might be, here's a tidbit for the week. This
mm,
is going to help you. And so they can find me on both LinkedIn and Facebook. I am so open to just chatting with someone and helping them figure out where they are right now
yeah.
and what their next step can be. It can be tiny.
Mm,
We
yeah.
don't have to go leaping like a kangaroo through this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lynn. I will for sure list the book that you just suggested in the show notes, also your website, the links to your Facebook and LinkedIn, so people can reach out to you and follow along the work you're doing. And it sounds fantastic that you've got those helpful videos that you're posting, little short tidbits of information that can help people as they're going through this process. Dr. Lynn, thank you so much again for coming on the show and sharing all of this with us. It's been beautiful. It's been a wonderful conversation. And I thank you again.
Oh, and I thank you for having me. Thank everyone who's listening. I just hope you picked up at least one little morsel to help you.
Mm, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure it's more than just one because you shared some amazing things with us today. So thank you for that. And we'll talk more soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another insightful episode of the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. We appreciate your time and curiosity as we explore fascinating topics together. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to join us next week for another amazing episode. Remember, your journey of learning and growth is a continuous adventure, and we're thrilled to be part of it. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next week, stay curious and keep exploring those pockets of knowledge.